you're audible.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we'll be starting in 1 minute, right? I'm just thinking things. Uh, okay. So I guess okay. So we'll be starting, right? Is it- So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Placement Bootcamp, organized by Communiqué IIT Kharagpur. We are here to dive into the world of software. I'm Shivang, and I will be hosting this event with my co-host Abhinav. We are delighted to have you all for this panel discussion as we explore the insights required to prepare for a career in software. We are confident that most of your questions about pursuing a career in software will be answered by the end of this session by our panel.
Also, I would like to tell the audience that chat box is open for you. Feel free to post your questions over there. We'll take up at the end of the session. Now, without further ado, allow us to introduce our esteemed panelists. First up, we have Mr. Jyoti Prakash, who has successfully secured a placement at Databricks. Mr. Jyoti, would you please take a moment to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, hello everyone. My name is Jyoti Prakash, and I'm a dual degree student from the Department of Electronics and Electrical Communication Engineering. I recently passed out in April 2024, and I'm from Azad Hall of Residence, that is there. And I think prior to this, I'd actually entered at Disha, and then finally during the placements, I was placed at Databricks, and I'm currently working in Bangalore as a software engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Jyoti.
Next on our panel, we have Mr. Atulya Sharma, who has secured a coveted placement at DaVinci. Mr. Atulya, please give your brief introduction to the audience.
Yeah. Hello, guys. I'm Atulya, and I'm a former student of IIT Kharagpur in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, enrolled in its BTech course. I was a resident of Vidyasagar Hall of Residence, and yeah, that's it. For my internship experience, I worked at DTL, like Tech Lab. If most of you guys are not aware of it, so it's like a Singapore-based hedge fund. I think it came for interns as well this time. And apart from that, I interned at Salesforce, which was through CTC. And yeah, I kind of rejected my PP offer. Like it was not official. Yeah, unofficially I rejected PP offer and I had to sit in for placements, through which I luckily got into DaVinci. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Atulya. And next up on the panel is Mr. Dev Agarwal, who has also landed a great placement at Zomato. Mr. Dev, can you please give your introduction to the audience?
Yeah, so hello guys, I am Dev Agarwal and I'm also a boarder of Azad Hall of Residence. Uh, I and Jyoti were basically ringmates only. So I'm placed at Zomato. I've interned at MyTex and I'm from um, integrated MSc Economics course.
Thank you, Mr. Dev. So we would like to congratulate them for their amazing achievement. Without further delay, let's dive right into our discussion.
So, moving on to the first question. As we all are aware, the software industry is vast and encompasses a wide range of opportunities. Numerous companies offer different kinds of roles within the software domain. So, I would like to ask our panelists, what are the different types of software roles available depending on the company? Mr. Jyoti, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. So basically, in software roles, I think broadly there are two type of roles that most of the SD companies offer is either the software developer or the quant roles. I think quant is something like even HFTs or you have different firms. So people who generally prepare for software keep this as like the secondary, like parallel option. So like mostly these are the two roles, like software developer, the normal software developer role, and then this is the quant roles.
Thank you, Mr. Jyoti. Mr. Atulya, would you like to add some points?
Yeah, so adding to that, yeah, we have broadly classified as like two categories, but within that also we can like categorize them further. For example, we have in CDC itself, there is not a lot of variety, but very few companies come for like full stack dev roles. No, not full stack is quite common. Apart from that, we have like security roles. Like those are very rare. I think only Palo Alto Networks came with that. I'm not sure if it was the same thing. And apart from that, we have like usual backend developer roles and sometimes even blockchain developer roles. But yeah, those are kind of less in numbers. But yeah, full stack dev is the probably the most common, full stack and backend. And coming to the quant dev roles, so usually it's classified into infrastructure development. These are usually offered by Square Point Capital, or if from I not sure, but I think D-Shaw does it or not. I'm not sure, but yeah, MFTs and some hedge funds give such kind of roles, and then we have usual quant developer roles or C++ development roles.
Thank you, Mr. Atulya.
Mr. Dev, any insights that you would like to share?
Yeah, so basically, I guess Atulya and Jyoti have summed it up. Uh, what I could add is that in software development only, there are instead of different sorts of roles, there are different types of software developments where you can work. So some could be working on some low latency, creating systems which are very quick. Some can be building some product or features which are consumer facing. Some can be building a SaaS kind of products, which is like software as a service for wherein your main customer is a business. So what you can get is some different kind of learnings which you can get with all the different types of software developments. And nowadays, what I've seen are there are many ML roles as well, which are there for software development. So those roles are not completely ML research or ML based roles, but they are more towards creating systems which can take in data from a pre-trained models, or they can use those use those predictions to improve their software reliability, you can say, or software performance, or some predictions like that. So inside software also there are different kinds of companies which you can focus based on where you want to work on. If you want to work on scale, you can go with some big company. If you want to work on something which is quite innovative, you can go for a startup. So that in that sense also you can choose for which company you would want to go.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dev. Now coming to the basics selection structure of it. So if you guys can tell us few steps on how basic selection process of software profile goes. So Mr. Dev, would you like to start with this question?
Yeah, sure. So basically, mostly what I've seen is that you get an OA, and sometimes there are two rounds of OAs which you need to give. And other than after that, the interview process starts after a resume selection if there is something like that. In the interviews, mostly the first round is some basic test or some basic DSA problems. Second round is mostly maybe related to design or CS fundamentals. If we clear that, there can be some rounds on maybe some high level or low level designing. Other than that, it's just the HR round and you are done with the process.
Okay, so I just have one follow-up question to it, right? So
Yeah.
which stage of the whole selection process that you described, according to you, is the most challenging for a candidate,
OA.
and why also?
OA, because in OA you will be competing against many people and you don't know how they are performing. So, and there are many external factors as well which come into picture. So yeah, definitely OA. After OA, if you have little bit of skills, I personally feel that going through two interviews or three interviews, it would be better. But yeah, luck also plays quite a bit of role in that. So according to me, OA would be the hardest.
Thank you. So Mr. Atul, would you like to give your views on this, like the basic structure and something that you would like to add?
Yeah, I think Dev has already covered most of it. But in some cases, there are like some different kind of companies for like I'm not sure the I'm forgotten the names of them basically, but yeah, some of them even keep like MCQ rounds that had to be given from your room, and some company I forgot the name, but they gave something like a game kind of assessment that had to be given in rooms. I'm not sure, but yeah, these kind of odd rounds are also present in some companies. So I have to take care of that, and those can be like quite random. So sometimes you wouldn't have a say what's going on. Apart from that, I think DaVinci still had the code reviews kind of rounds. I think that's very specific. Most like I think 99% will not have these kind of rounds, but yeah, mostly it's like OA, then the some 2 or 3 sets of interviews, and lastly it's mostly HR. The order might be skewed, might be, uh, but yeah, more or less it's basically the same. And yeah,
As you both,
about the challenging part, yeah, definitely
sorry.
OA.
So, as you both of you described OA as the challenging part, so can you suggest some resources or platforms that help you during your placement season that you use?
I think
Uh,
Jyoti should start because he's like I think he's quite high rated, 2000 or 1900 on the code forces.
oh, yeah, absolutely.
Uh, if I should I go to the basic section, or do you want me to give the resources?
Anything like you can add upon the structure itself that if you feel like something needs to be added, and also one the resources or platforms that.
Yeah, sure. So for the I'll just add to like what Dev and Atulya has said. Like in the basic selection process, I think in mostly during internships, if you're targeting, I think it's just like two the just most of the companies just have a coding test. I think it will be like 2 or 3 coding tests. But going forward towards the placement, I think company have a lot more variety to ask. I think some of them give fill in the blanks. I think there are like questions on OS also. And if you're targeting something like quant profile, I think there are like empty spaces to where you have to write your entire solution as well. And I think 1 or 2 firms even have a paper-based test. I think Graviton had it this time. I think the things get a lot more varied when you go towards the placement. In internship, I'd say it's just far more better. And then once the OA is done, I think for the interview rounds, again, if I have to divide it further, I think during internships, the standard procedure is to have 2 interviews. And in some cases, it might go on to an HR round for the third. But mostly, most of the companies wrap it up within 2 rounds of interviews. And it's generally like a first round is a coding round, and then the second round is more of like a CV grilling slash like a bit more system design oriented in some of the companies. And towards the placement, I think the interviews get stretched more. There are usually 3 to 4 rounds sometimes. And like for the same firms, like a firm that is asking 2 rounds in internship might ask like 3 to 4 rounds during the placement. So there again, the things will get more varied. Like there again, the standard process is like 1 or 2 coding rounds, and then it'll be like a managerial sort of round, and it'll be something like a system design and OS sometimes. So that is like the basic selection if I have to add further. And going forward with the resources, I would say like the standard resources are again the same. I think GFG is like for interview prep. Like Geeks for Geeks is something I think everybody follows for basic interview preparation. Apart from that, I think I would suggest like mostly people do competitive programming, which is something like you usually do on Code Process or Code Chef, which obviously which helps a lot. Other than that, I'd say if you're just solely focused on placement, I think lead code is like the destination for it. Like if your main interest is just to like crack coding questions and look for the placement process, I think lead code is something that everybody does. And I think these are the basic resources like AdCode or Beat, all these websites. I think you generally prefer to use it. I think this is mostly what I think people used to prefer. I think the other Atulya and Dev can add further.
Yeah. Anyone to add, Mr. Atul Musli?
Hmm. Apart from that, I would say like you should really religiously practice like on contests, live contests on especially lead code and art coder. So lead code is somewhat easier than art coder, but in art coder you will get like a flavor of some computer programming as well as some DSA. Usually problem with code forces nowadays is like there's a lot of mathy stuff, greedy stuff and constructive algos and so on. So those are not very relevant to the kind of OAs that we are getting right now. So I think ArtCoder is somewhat more oriented towards CDC, and LeetCode is like the go-to resource. And there's one thing also that a lot of interviewers, they are themselves not quite prepared for these kind of interviews. So mostly what they do is sometimes they copies paste questions from LeetCode, and this is not like I'm making it up. It actually happens sometimes. So yeah, I'm not saying you to just take every question at LeetCode and grind it, no. But yeah, uh, the kind of question that they are gonna ask in OA, they are mostly gonna be similar to, let's say, LeetCode.
Okay. Mr. Dev, if you would like to add.
Yeah, so basically, I would say if you guys have a lot of time, then doing code courses makes sense because having a good rating helps your resume. Other than that, it helps you build ad hoc question capabilities. But these are not what they'll be asking in OA or in interviews. For sure, there are two types of interviews. Either interview will copy it from LeetCode or some very standard problem, or if he is making some ad hoc problem, he'll not be able to make it so hard. It will mostly be around, if I had to say, maybe 1500 rated problem in CF. Div 2B would be there. So it makes no sense to grind for code forces right now if the placements are just right above your head. It's better to do lead code. I regret it a lot. I haven't done it. So that's one thing. Other than that, always have friends in different IITs, join groups as many as you can because questions are getting repeated, mostly all of them. So it doesn't matter if you have skill or not. Always a little different. You should have questions what have been asked in different by different companies and in different colleges. I've seen same question paper being asked, including MCQs, and anything which they are asking. So that's one thing. Other than that, sometimes I've also seen some questions getting repeated again and again. So don't think that if this question has come in way of this company, it will not come in an way of different company, because you see the mostly the platforms are same. They have some pool. They randomly select questions from there. So it's high probability that questions might get repeated. At least one or two questions you'll get. So that's something. And other than that, for resources, I would say GFG, as Jyoti said, I have done GFG for OOPS, and I've done NASO Academy for OS. Other than that, I've done coding. And for SQL, yeah, I think mostly you should do SQL. I mean, it will just take you maybe 4 or 5 days. So it's good to have a different skill. I mean, maybe it might not so happen that you are doing great in SD, so it's like a great fallback because most of the guys don't do SQL. So it played a really great role for me. So you can do lead code SQL top 50 problems. They were pretty enough. There was no SQL problem in my way, which I remember, and I wasn't able to do it. So they are pretty good. Yeah, that's it. That's it from my side.
I'd just like to add something further. Like mostly
Yeah.
the coding questions and like competitive coding, it's mostly essential for if you are targeting for like a day 1 to 3 type of companies. As soon as the day progresses, I think most of the companies will focus on something like web development, and there'll be a lot of other stuff that mainly software development skills will be tested further. So it's like only like when you're targeting for the top three day companies, that's when like the CP is like like the prime focus. Like that is what they'll judge you on. But if you're going something like a day 8, 7 and further, I think they'll ask you a lot of questions based on web development, like software development in general, front end, back end. Like there'll be direct questions where you'll be asked like direct JavaScript concepts and all. I think depending upon your level of preparation, I think you must also focus on these things like the web development suite of things, so that like even in case of things go bad, I think you have something to fall back on. I think those things need to be kept in mind as well. And obviously, as Dave mentioned, I think questions repeat. It's very common for questions to repeat. I think company specific preparation, like going on a lead code thread of particular company, I think before giving the OA, I think it helps a lot. Like sometimes you see direct questions repeating or direct concepts to be repeating over there. So I think that is like a prime and must do.
That was some very insightful advices from you, and I'm sure the KJP community would be very grateful to you get these advices and use these resources that you guys suggested. Well, I have
Shivang,
one more.
Shivang, I
Sorry.
just have one more thing to say. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
now that we focused on saying that other than CF, we need to do lead code and all. Just one thing, that if you guys are doing CP for let's say half a year or 1 year, and there is some little left for you to cross the band, I would say keep doing CP, be it till November, December, whatever the time is, do CP and try to cover that band, because that band sometimes matter when it's written on your CV. So that's just it. So sorry for interrupting. This is what I wanted to add.
Yeah, thank you. That was something which was really important. I get that a lot of people would might suffer due to the thing that you mentioned, focusing on this. So, like,
Yeah,
also I have one more question that in yeah, yeah, that's it.
adding to that, since we have already mentioned a lot of platforms, I would suggest that please do not do all of the platforms at once. Like please stick to like one or two platforms at max, because then you will because if you're the one doing all the platforms and all the contests, then you will be the one who will be like burdened a lot, and then it might cause you to like burn out, and that's the worst thing possible in placement season. If you burn out, you are mostly finished. Like please don't get burnt out by doing everything. Please do not take everything at once. That's the point. Like keep doing one or two
Thank you.
stuff and keep it very very focused, so that you don't get tired. And yeah, basically coverage as well. It's basically like that Bruce Lee quote, I forgot. Anyway.
Thank you. That was such a nice advice. Even burning out is a thing which could lag your overall preparation a lot. So thank you, Atali, for that. Uh, well, also there is sometimes asked a question in interviews itself. There were questions about core CS fundamentals and OOPs. So, is there any something that you would like to suggest about how to prepare on these concepts? Uh, Atulya, you can go forward.
I think that kind of depends, because some companies like ask core CS in quite detail, and uh, a lot of companies do not do that. They are like it's basically like the HFTs and hedge fund. They like want to see a lot of core CS in the candidate. So yeah, they will ask kind of difficult questions. For example, like I think D Shaw and Square Point and Graviton, etc. They all ask quite difficult questions on core CS. But if you say like other companies, so they focus more on CP side or development side based other than these core CS. So if you're like usual software roles, I don't think it will be like very very tough. You can uh, prep it from GFG or something like some any random YouTube playlist, and that will be enough. But if you are going for roles that are heavy on the core CS side, then I would suggest that you take up some YouTube playlist for some university at like for example UCB or some similar kind of university, and take their courses, and you can just watch their entire playlist, and I think you'll be very very good at the uh, basically the topic. So they teach very very nicely, and you will be like set for the interviews as well as your OAs if they ask anything. So it depends on the companies. So if you I mean there's no harm in doing more of it, but yeah, if you have crunch on time, then I suggest do not do anything extra.
Okay, Atulya. Uh,
Dave, would you like to add any point?
Yeah, so I would say for OS, you could use Neso Academy. I mean, that's what I've used. And I've also tried some YouTube channels of, I don't remember the name, but they were some famous bhaiyas which we have right now. Uh, but they were not good. So what I've seen is Neso Academy was much better. It is, I don't exactly remember. There's one PPT for OS which is quite popular and used, and it was suggested by one of my uh, friends, but Neso Academy basically tells everything based on that PPT itself. That book, I don't remember the name, but they were really great. But it's an overkill, and I agree with Atulya that doing more is better than doing less, because you don't know when they'll ask you more. So that's the thing. And for oops, I feel GFG is okay. I did GFG only. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Dev.
Jyoti, would you like to add?
Yeah,
No.
I think both of them have mostly covered it. But what I would say is like if you're sitting for placements and internships, I think the order of preference should be like CP should be first, and second should be OOPS, and third I think you should go towards something like system design, and finally I think you should cover OS if that is something. Because primarily I think most of the HFTs are some I think they are in love with OS. Obviously they'll ask you a lot of things. And I think if you're like a CS or MNC student, I think some part of it is what is completed in your curriculum as well. But for someone who's from a non-CS background, I would say that give topmost preference to OOPS. I think OOPS is something I think most of the firms will definitely ask in the interview rounds. During OA, they might not ask it. But in interviews, I think even if you don't know OS, I think you can say to them that this is not covered in my syllabus. And I think they won't cut any marks for it. But not knowing OOPS is definitely a deal breaker for most of the firms. I think for OOPS, if I have to cover, I think GFG is obviously the holy grail for anything related to software preparation. But I would say like the software development slides of CS department, I think they are very good. I think that covers a lot of the OOPS topics that if you want to learn from there. And then I think system design. I think system design is again something that a lot during placements they definitely ask, like many of the firms ask. During internships, they might not ask it. But during placement, I think OOPS and system design, I think I would tell people to give more weightage to them. I think OS is something that you can do as an afterthought in case if your preparation is too good. But I think after CB, give prime focus to OOPS and system design. I would say that.
Thank you, Jyoti. So, moving on to the next question. As many of us aspire to secure internships during our college years, typically in the second or third year, any difference that you spotted in the interviews of placements from that of internship? Mr. Atulya, would you like to comment on this first?
Yeah, so I think they are significantly tougher and have more variety of questions. So during internships, mostly it's like students just know CP and somewhat OOPS, somewhat, and mostly none of them know like core CS or system design. Definitely not. So yeah, most of the companies just test students on only and only CP, and that too like not extremely hard, like so lower level as compared to placements. I would say placement, even the CP would be like on higher side usually. And yeah, so we also have other topics as well which they ask, which Jyoti and they've already mentioned, mostly like
Uh,
that.
so I had another question regarding this. So, can you share tips on handling difficult interview questions, especially when you don't know the answer right away?
I think it depends on whether it's a factual thing or something like you're solving a question. It depends on that. If it's a factual question, then just say I don't know, because yeah, if you like try to guess around it, and yeah, it kind of makes a bad impression. And for the problem solving, I would, in my opinion, I would say that uh, the question that they are giving, they might be of two types. If one that's it's very genuinely hard, and even the interview might not be able to solve it, but they want to see that how you actually approach it, and they might give marks for you for not giving up and trying to get as close to the solution as possible. Yeah. And the second one would be like they are tough but not that tough, it's just that you are like no, could be like you're not confident enough, or could be like you're not feeling well to the point. So yeah, in both cases, there's only one solution: just push through it and do not give up. And at some point you're bound to get the solution if the question is not that hard actually, and you are just missing out on some confidence, let's say. If it's genuinely hard, still do not give up and try to get as close to the solution as possible and try to ask for hints. Yeah, sometimes interviews also like give up some hints for the candidates if they are trying hard enough and you're trying to get to the solution. But yeah, if you just throw your hands up, then yeah, that's not going to help you. You will be rejected if you do that. So just don't give up and have some faith in yourself.
Dave, would you like to add upon this?
Yeah, so first thing which I would like to say is never ever leave a problem. Don't say that I don't know or I will not do it. I mean, if it is factual, then I don't feel that in many interviews you'll be thrown with a factual problem which is completely fact. But I mean, if it is completely fact, say don't, I don't know. But if you think from your previous knowledge, you can give a good guess. I say you should go and make communicate to the interviewer that you don't know the answer, but then also tell him that based on your previous knowledge, what answer you think could be there. So basically, why I'm saying this is because I didn't had a prep for systems design at all, and in the in Capital One interview first round, I think they had one complete problem based on system design. So I definitely didn't knew what to do. So what I did was, because I knew something about SQL and tried to make things up and somehow created something which they liked and selected me for round two. And other option could have been that I could have thought, so anyone could have thought that I don't know system design, the problem is completely different. We could have left it. But you see, the point is that you should not leave any problem as it is. Use your base knowledge, say whatever you feel like, and the interviewer is always there to help you. I mean, they don't expect you to know everything, and they will help you. It has happened multiple times that many times I was doing a problem wrong, and then they were giving me some feedback, they were asking me questions, then address their questions properly, try to think, try to change your approach. It's totally fine to go in one direction which is completely wrong, and then completely switching from it and getting to a right answer. And even if you don't get to a right answer, if you are really adaptable to their feedbacks, if you're giving logical clues, what gives them a sense is that you are a quite systematic person. You might not be correct in the answer, but you have something in your mind wherein you can get feedback, you can create some constructive things about that, and you are quite adaptable. So you see, OA is basically where they want to know if you have basic knowledge. Now they've tested your basic knowledge. Well, now what they want to know is if you are a team player, if you can work in their team, if you can listen to them, if you are someone who's nice to talk to, if you are someone who has logical capabilities. So just go, be chill. Don't just give your everything. I mean, if you are saying I know, and if you are stressed out, just uh, have a feeling before going to the interview that if you are stressed out, then also it's not going to happen. So it's better to give your all in. If you don't know, then also give your all in, go all out with the interview. So it also gives them a basic sense of your energy as well, which moves the interviewer towards whatever you like. And if you are doing something wrong, tell them that communication is pretty important here. If there's some hard problem, it is hard for everyone. Don't think that you are the one who's not able to solve it. There are other guys as well. It might so happen that you solved good easy problems fast, and then they are asking you hard problems, which is not the case with others. So have confidence, and if it's a hard problem, logically build through existing knowledge and try to get feedback and adapt as much as possible. Yeah,
Uh,
that's it from my side.
so it seems like never giving up and being honest to the interview is the key.
Yeah, I
So
feel over communicating to an interviewer is pretty much required because they don't know what you are thinking. You should tell them each and every time. Even if you are thinking an approach, tell them that I am thinking that there could be this approach, and somewhere in between, tell them that you need some time to think, maybe for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Communication is the key, I feel, in an interview.
Mr. Jyoti, would you add some points to this?
Yeah, I think both of them summed it up pretty nicely. But what I would say is like the same company getting into the company via internship is way easier in placement. I think because the same company, the stakes are always higher during placements, and the interviews and even the tests are very, very tougher compared to what is happening in the internship. Because in the internship, they don't expect you to know a lot of things. But in placements, there's always an expectation that you have things covered since you're at the end of your engineering curriculum. So they always expect you to know stuff. In internship, most of the time, it's like you don't know stuff, the interview is still fine with it. And second thing, going on towards the hard questions, I would say like you must attend the interview in such a manner that it's not like a do or die situation. Like they want to know whether you are a fit for the company. And obviously, nobody knows the answers to everything. So for any difficult question, I think the for coding rounds, the general rule of thumb is always write the brute force. No matter if you know the problem, you don't know the problem, or whatever the situation is. I think the first step is always give the brute force solution to the problem. And then when the interviewer says like build upon it, I think then you're supposed to build on top of it. This is like the prime thing that happens that you are supposed to do. And apart from that, I would say like an honest attempt is always like encouraged. And do not try to oversmart the interviewer. I think that is something you must do. I think for factual questions, as Satulya and they mentioned, I think if you don't know the answer, say don't know. but do not like try to oversmart the interviewer by giving him like random words and throwing him over there. I think that is something if you try to oversmart him, I think it's always taken in negative spirit. And obviously, an honest attempt is always appreciated. And even if you don't reach the solution, I think your thought process is what that matters, because they know that some of the people might have already seen the question, they might have given them the answer, but that is not what is important. The important step is whether you are able to guide the interviewer through your process. So always try to make a note of telling what you actually think and try to reach the solution in your way. It's not necessary to finally reach the solution. Even if you don't reach the solution and they like your thought process, there's a very good chance you might proceed further with you. I think an honest attempt is always necessary.
Yeah. So I had another question. Like, how can candidates stand out during the non-technical or HR rounds of the selection process?
I think you're supposed to take the name of the person. Like, how are we supposed to know whom is the question directed towards?
Sorry. Like, so, Mr. Jyoti, okay, you can go on.
Yeah, sure. So the thing is like in software interviews in particular, the HR round is not that important. Like I would say, if you're reaching the HR round, I think there's a very good chance that you are selected for the process. Until or unless you definitely don't screw things up. But the one question that I feel is the deal breaker in HR rounds is mostly the HR generally asks like, what other companies do you have shortlist in, and why are you preferring this company over the others? I think this is like the question that mostly breaks students in the HR round. I think I just add a few tips on this particular question. I think always try to tell what is good about the company that you are interviewing with. Do not like say about anything negative about the other company. The goal is always to praise the current company and say nothing about the other company that you're shortlisted for interview. I think this is the only question that I think most have seen people getting rejected in HR round. Otherwise, as in case of non-technical others, I think HR round plays a major role. But in software development roles, generally if you're in the HR round, and I think this one question is like a deal breaker. Other than that, I think you're mostly selected if they're in HR round. I think others can add towards it.
Yeah. Dave, would you like to add something?
Yeah, so I would say that you most of the times know what the HR is going to ask you because you yourself know you better. So for me, I already knew they will ask me why I'm from economics going into software and why my complete internships have been in research going to placements. And then other question, I mean, these were um, pretty easy questions for me to guess. So be prepared for whatever you feel like based on your CV, what can be asked. That's one thing. Other than that, as Jyoti said, they'll definitely be asking you why are you preferring that company. So quite important fact is that you should not I'm just overemphasizing on this fact because most of the guys don't fall into this pit that they downgrade any other company. So you see what best you can do is most of the each and every company is unique in its own way. So just try to make a point that the company which you want to get selected, it is different to the other company in this way, and that for your enjoyment and for your uh, career, or you want to do something which belongs to that particular company. So I mean you can find that middle ground every time because no two companies are doing exact same work, and even if they are doing exact same work, there are some things which is different from other company, be it related to software, be it not related to software, but make a point to not downgrade any other company. Yeah, that's it. Other than that, HR round doesn't makes a lot of sense in software. I also agree.
Atul, would you like to add some points?
No, I think it's basically summed up. HR doesn't like play a huge role in software. It's fine.
Thank you for your valuable inputs. It will surely help our AGPNs to in their placement process.
So, as we're talking about internship itself, right? So, I want to ask you a question that what if we have an internship in a different field, like non-software, like finance or core, let's say, and the person wants to go for software in their placement season, right? So, would that internship be counted or not? So, Mr. Jyoti, if you want to go with the question.
Yeah, sure. I think for this, I think Dave is like the best person to answer this question. I think he'll answer it after this. But what I would say is like for software companies in particular, I think they don't care about what you have done. I think the general trend is in internships, so they definitely don't care about anything except your CP skills. But during placement, I think the internships matter a bit. But I think you can match it with self projects. I think it's always recommended to have one or two projects related to software development if you're sitting. I think you can do like a basic web dev project or like an ML based project. I think these are something I think most of the people do in case if you don't have a software development internship. Coming to the thing, I think if your prior internship is in an alternate field like finance or something, I think the prime question will always be the same. Like, why are you shifting to software instead of finance or the other field? Or why are you not going into your core discipline of engineering that you're pursuing it? I think these questions are bound to be asked, and I think you must be prepared for it because these questions, there should be an answer at the top of your head because this is definitely going to be asked. And as I said earlier, like for software development, like they don't actually care about what you have done prior to it. Simple, like one or two projects to just show that you are interested in this field is mandatory. And apart from that, I think the other CPUs and I think those professions are important. And for internships, like the resume itself does not matter. I think only your coding skills and the interview experience matters.
Mr. Jyoti.
So I would like
Mr. Dev.
Mr. Dev to share his points on this.
Yeah, so basically, just like Jyoti said, for internship, it doesn't matter. So now what I'll be telling is based on the placements only. So I feel it makes a lot of sense for you to have projects in the field where you want to do some full-time role. But what might happen is that let's say you don't have any internship in that field, but you will have to write you should write the top internship of any other field which you have for sure because it shows that you've done some pretty good work there, and then try to build a story around it, a story which is believable for the interviewer as well. Just it should not be that okay मेरा finance में था मैंने सोचा CPB कर लेते हैं तो चल रहा है काम वैसा, उनको वैसा नहीं लगना चाहिए. It should be a really great story for them to understand. So for my personal experience मेरे पास ECL और 180DC था और थोड़े बहुत एक दो थे other than SD के काम. So I made a pretty good story around it which is quite believable for everyone. So वो होना चाहिए, and I got asked about it in each and every interview. There has been no interview off campus, on campus, both combined where they have not asked me this question. So that's it. Other than that, you should definitely have a project. So um, from what I know through some of the seniors who've hired a lot of guys in Zomato is that they are pretty smart and they can figure out if you worked in a particular project or not. So they'll in a just by your writing they'll get to know that this person has not worked on this project but he has written it in CV. So now what to do, because you just have let's say 1 week or 2 week for a project, you cannot build it completely from scratch, you'll be seeing it from the internet. That's the main rule how you will be getting those projects. So but what needs to be there is that you should know ins and outs of the frameworks which you are writing. Write too many frameworks, like let's say you are writing MongoDB, let's say you are writing DynamoDB, let's say you can write n number of frameworks there to just show them that you are most interested, but then they'll be asking a question on them because they know the project. There are 1,000 students, they've seen CVs of 1,000 people, they would know that this project is coming same in most of the students, so it is copied from somewhere on internet. But what will differ you from other candidates would be the level of in-depth knowledge you have about those projects and how you can uh, convince them that at least you know what you've done. So that's the key. Other than that, I feel it doesn't matter a lot until and unless, I mean, after your resume gets selected, if you just follow these 2 3 rules, make a good story, that's one. Just be prepared with some projects and know in depth about your frameworks which you've done, and be vocal about how you shifted towards SD and now how you would like your career to be shaped. That's fine. I mean, after resume gets selected, you if you are in interview, it will not matter other than these 3 points.
Thank you, Mr. Dev.
Mr. Atulya, would you like to add something to it?
I don't think so. Again, it's like summed up very nicely. They've covered everything, basically.
Okay.
So I had a question from Mr. Dev, as he previously mentioned about some like projects in the internship. So does like if we did an internship in a non-software field, and now we want to shift our career into a software field, like how can we bridge the gap between these two?
Yeah, they some मतलब someone has to have some points. So let's say कि तुमने पूरा फाइनेंस कर रखा है, कंप्लीटली सीबी फाइनेंस से फील्ड है, तो ऑब्वियस है कि तुम्हारे पास में टाइम नहीं होगा सीपी करने का, तो तुम्हारे ओए भी क्लियर नहीं हो रहे होंगे. बट नाउ कंसिडरिंग कि तुम्हारे ओए क्लियर हो रहे हैं, तो आई वुड से कि यदि तुम्हारे ओए क्लियर हो रहे हैं तो तुमने कुछ सर्टेन लेवल ऑफ सीपी करी होगी विच इज एट सेम लेवल विद लेट्स से your circuitous friends or your non-circuitous friends as well who have had previous internships in software. तो तुम अब कैसे अपने आप को बेटर प्रूव करोगे? दैट्स द क्वेश्चन विच यू हैव. वन वे इज गेट अ गुड रेटिंग इन कोडिंग प्लेटफॉर्म्स विच इज द वे विच आई फॉलोड. Other thing could be do a project which most of the guys have not done. So see, most of the guys जो नेट पे इजीली पहले सर्च में मिल रहे होंगे वो प्रोजेक्ट कर रहे होंगे या नहीं ही डाल रहे होंगे. तो तुम कोई ऐसा प्रोजेक्ट डालो जिसमें कि विच इज नॉट वेरी इजीली सीन बाय अदर्स, और उसमें कुछ सीखने वाली चीजें हों. और अदर देन दैट आई डोंट थिंक सो, अदर देन दैट एनीथिंग वुड मैटर. मतलब स्किल्स ही होने चाहिए भाई, मतलब स्किल्स हैं तो वो तेरे को ले लेंगे.
So Mr. Atul, would you like to add some points?
Yeah, so coming to that, I would have like different suggestions for the project kind of thing. So if you are coming from a very different background, and even if you are like getting your projects from somewhere else, yeah, as Jyoti mentioned, as they mentioned, please know it inside out, and yeah, it will basically give you an edge, because nowadays most of the CVs that I am seeing for the juniors that ask me to review their CVs, they mostly like write very common like projects. Like there's a very infamous Rubik cube solver. Please do not put that kind of projects, especially if you are coming from a different background, because then you are guaranteed to be rejected. Please do not do that. If you had some like good projects but not so good that you cannot explain them. I had one friend like copying of some like a shell kind of project, like it was written in C or C++, and he was trying to base his CV around that. And I had told him that please do not do that, because if they ask you any of like any nitbits of that thing, then you are gonna get rejected. So yeah, if you're picking up CVs, picking up projects from other CVs, please make sure that it's neither too simple or too difficult. It should be right around your level that you can explain to the interviewer. And projects are the only ones that will save you from having no like prior internship in the same industry. But yeah, one thing I would like to add is if you are coming from specifically from finance backgrounds, I think fintechs, like basically the companies like PayPal, uh, like some startups based around finance, I think they kind of value people coming off from finance. So yeah, you can give them a pretty good argument that you are coming from finance itself, and if you are sitting for fintech companies, then yeah, this will actually give you an edge over usual software people in some cases. But yeah, you have to be confident in that, and yeah, prepare your points before going into the interview.
So Mr. Jyoti, would you like to share some of your experiences?
Yeah, I think Dev and Atali have summarized it properly. But I would just say, I just tell about the weightage of internships in prior fields. Like for setting for SDN during internships, I think your prior intern is mostly not judged. I think during internships, they are very lenient with it. They'll just see whether you're able to solve the coding rounds. Sometimes, because the interview rounds are as well very less in internships, like there might be just 1 or 2 rounds. So like just after the coding test, they'll just ask you CP, and then there'll be like a manager sort of round, and done. That's it. But during placement is when they actually judge your prior internships. In that also, I'd say like you must know your internship project. I think that is the most important thing. Like once you've written something on your resume, like you must know about it. There is no way that you can't say that I don't know something that is written on your resume. Like even if your resume is a bit toned down to your level, but it is always expected that any word that is written on your resume, you must be able to defend it. Like a candidate that is not able to defend anything on the like I'll just give an example. If they're like two candidates, one is someone who has like a very good resume with top end projects, and another person who has like a mid sort of resume. But if the higher end resume person, if he's not able to defend any project in his resume, I think there's a very good chance he'll not be selected. There is a person who might not have extremely good projects, but if he knows anything that is everything that is written on his resume, I think he's like the candidate who is going to be hired. So I think like the most common things, as both of them have mentioned, is copying projects from your batchmates or seniors. I think in that the tech stack that is used, I think the general questions you need to be aware of it. Like something popular like React, why not Angular? Or like these are like the basic questions that are always asked. I think have deep knowledge about your projects. And because once you go through a lot of resumes, you'll notice that for SD resumes, most of the projects look the same. So like the projects won't mostly be a differentiating factor. But the differentiating factor will be like whether you know what is written on your resume. Your projects are essential because there are mostly like 10 or 15 different type of projects and mostly people will do a PNC on it. But I would say like knowing your project is more important than the actual quality of the project.
Okay. That was quite an insightful answer from all of you. Thank you, everyone. So, moving on to the next question. What mistakes do you think you made during your placement season? And what lessons or realizations did you gain afterward that could lead to a better outcome? Mr. Atulya, would you like to share your experience?
Hmm, I think a lot of mistakes, but I'll come to the major ones first. First of all, I took my health very, very leniently. So I used during my prep, like I had to go through a lot of stuff because I was lacking behind my peers and a lot of topics from like every top, basically every topic I was not at all confident in. So I used to like just hole in my room and study everything. And I even used to forget to eat, and yeah, that's not supposed to happen. I even stayed uh, in my hall during the holidays as well, every holiday, and whenever the mess was closed, I just did not even bother eating. You're not supposed to do that. Please do not do that. Uh, if even if we are like when TP holidays would be coming up and some halls might close down their mess, then you might have to eat outside. Just go and eat outside, or like at least get some proper food for yourself if you are staying in your hall. Take your health as the first priority, because if you're not healthy, you're not even gonna go give tests. uh, Based on this mistake, so I had like I was very extremely bad uh, conditions for me, especially during interviews. So I was almost about to be hospitalized because I had some lung infection, I'm not sure, and it lasted quite long. So yeah, basically the point is please take care of your health. It even cost me some like tests. I could not give like Apple SZ test or even Microsoft. I could not do properly. I even somehow the companies that I wanted to sit in like very seriously, even those I could not do it properly. So for example, Quantbox, I messed up that test entirely, and obviously not shortlisted. So yeah, please take your health very seriously. And apart from that, when you are trying to read up new topics, suppose core CS or something like that, please make notes. This is a very important thing that most of the people do not do, because they are just like, we'll just see the playlist and then yeah, yaad ho jayega, dekh lenge baad mein. This will not work. Hardly it will take like 2 or 3 weeks and you will forget everything. Please make notes. It should be in your muscle memory. It's a quite underrated kind of advice that most people do not take like to heart. But yeah, I have seen it like firsthand. So I'm telling you, please make notes when you are starting to study something new. It will help you. I even take notes even now in like at work. Even at like my workplace, I have made it a habit to take notes. It just keeps you organized.
Thank you, Mr. Atulya.
Mr. Jyoti, if you would like to answer the question about some of the mistakes that you did.
Uh, as Atulya mentioned, I think mental health is like I think the most important that you have to take care. I think this is more of a mistake and general takeaways that I'm sharing. Like because the entire placement and internship process is an unforgiving process. Like it makes you feel like this is the end of the world, even though that is not the end of the world. There are like way more things to do apart from like opportunities as well that is available outside. But the thing is like all of you are in the race at the same time. I think it makes it even more stressful than it actually is. So I would say the main takeaway that I would say is like have a peer group of friends. Like I think there is no substitute for it. I think preparing alone is I would say like do not prepare alone. Like have a group of friends that have the common goal or like you're at the same level or something. I think try to discuss with them. I think it always keeps you sane. Because the entire and obviously comparisons will always be there. I think like you'll constantly have a feeling that you're being left behind or there are no companies that are coming by or there are very less opportunities. I think you'll always be in an anxious state, but I think it is always important like to keep yourself calm, like talk to some friends or talk to people who genuinely care about you. I think that is like the most important thing to be there because if, on your best days, I think you can perform better. Like even if you're constantly in a state of anxiousness and you don't believe in yourself, I think even the problems that you know, you'll generally mess it up in the final exam. So I would say that a group of friends is the most important thing and practice in a group, like discuss with your friends and everything. Secondly, mistakes I would say is again I think this is something I think Atulya pointed out very beautifully. I think not taking notes is always like it always happens with me. Like you generally go through a video and sometimes you 2x the video and you complete that entire video, but afterwards you realize that you have not learned anything from that video. I think this is something that happens a lot, and particularly for concepts like OS and all, I think it's very important to actually jot down notes so that you can go and revise it back later. Because any video that you see after 2 days, you won't even remember 50% of it if you have just 2x that entire video. Because there's not semester exams that you can forget within 1 day. I think that is something that you have to take seriously. Other than that, I think the general tips is that only. I think keep your mental health sane, talk to your friends, talk to your family members, and have a calm mind. And always believe that there is something after this as well. Like, do not think like not securing a day one internship or placement is the end of the world. Like, because I think it's a 35, 30 odd long career. I think you'll have enough opportunities to prove yourself. Just believe in yourself. I think that is what I'll say.
That was some really good advice. Mental health is very important during such phases. Thank you, Mr. Jody, for it.
So, Mr. Dev, would you like to share your experience on this?
Yeah, so I think the 2 points which they've told are the most important. And after that, I would say whenever you are going for an OA, be little chill about it. I mean, I know it's very difficult, but my best OA was for the company where I knew they'll not at all select me for the interview, even if I do all the questions. Although I ended up
I
doing all the
agree. I
questions.
agree.
So that was my best OA. So I mean, there was one test of D show, and my friends, after knowing that I did all the questions, they told me that at least prepare for interview. Although I didn't get it even then, but that's a different story. And my worst OA was for a company where I was pretty much anxious that oh, iska to ho jayega, but then something happened, and I was pretty tensed about it, and that was the worst performance. I got the questions from somewhere from other college. I coded those questions before going for the OA, and after going in the OA, I was not able to solve one and a half out of three. So, point is, be little chill about it. This everything which whatever goes around you is a luxury, and I mean now that I've come out of it, I know it's pretty easy for us to say that be pretty chill about each and every OA, but it makes a difference on your performance. You'll not be able to perform better even if you have the skills. So that's one thing. Other than that, I think for some interviews, I would say uh, don't be too much in stress. There also try to over communicate. So whatever you feel like, prepare well about the interview, dress well, don't be in a hurry, keep your things in place. It should not, the last minute fuck up should not happen, that you are searching your pen, you are searching your CV, everything should be in place a day before. Yeah, I think those are the things. Yeah, for OA, I would say do lead code. I, this is something which I really miss doing. Do lead code. I cannot stress more on it. And get questions from other companies. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Dev. That was very informative.
Now, moving a bit away from interviews and preparations, mental health. Now, let's just come to a part where, most of our audience would be much curious about is how is the work culture in your respective companies and what kind of work do you do there, right? So, Mr. Atuli, would you like to start with it?
Yeah. So, how where do I start? uh, yeah, it's it can be pretty hectic as well. Yeah, but I'm for now I'm just a trainee. So like my contract is not actually like permanent. It's like 1 year for now. If I do well, then it will be extended to permanent. But yeah, and since that is the case, I have to like work like hard and yeah, get them to at least know that yeah they hired the right person. So I have to like put good effort in this, understanding the code base of the company, and yeah, basically I'm trying to upskill myself to be better. Yeah, because there's like always scope for improvement. So I would say I'm mostly like 10 to 11 hours each day at the office, if you include the lunch times as well, lunch and dinner times. And mostly the work is most like it's purely C++. Entire code base is in C++, except for some parts that are used for automation scripts and these kind of stuff. So everything that is not latency sensitive, that's written in Python, even the UI stuff. So there's also a lot of manual trading that goes on here. So everything is just like Python, and yeah, C++ for the latency sensitive thing. uh, Apart from that, yeah, so every person is like uh, expected to be reporting their whatever they have done every day, and it should be like a good amount of progress. And mostly like you are given freedom to do whatever you want, but yeah, you should get the results by end of the week, or let's say like some deadline. So they're pretty serious about like the work. I think this would be quite chilled out in other MNCs. But yeah, and yeah, to just for FYI, Indian HFTs are like quite worse than this, much worse.
Okay, so I have one follow-back question for you, which is not like really a question, but uh, so any aspect that you want to mention which you really appreciate or let's just say love about your company, if any?
Mm, I would say that this kind of work is like, I mean, it's mostly like being competitive in the industry, let's say. So basically, you are trying to build something that's faster than the other guy, and it's always goes on like that. It can be fun at times, it can be stressful as well. The best thing about this is that the company in general is that you can shift to any role that you want if you are like good at it and you can contribute. So like mostly companies do not do that in this industry. Mostly it's not like that. If you are hired for some role, you are gonna stick to that, and it's not gonna change. But in DaVinci, it's different. You can shift to a different roles as per like the requirements, or if you are good at it. So yeah, there's always that freedom involved. And yeah, and apart from that, the responsibility kind of thing. So I mentioned that left my potential PPO at Salesforce. Why I did not like to work specifically at like MNCs, because they did not like give me some kind of proper project. They just gave me some dummy kind of project that they are not gonna use in production anyways. And yeah, that felt like the work which I'm doing, is it even doing anything? So yeah, I had always those kind of questions. So yeah, in this case, I got what I asked for. I have to work like directly into production, like not directly into production, but yeah, you get the point. It's like testing, then go into beta, then into prod, whatever. So yeah, I'm quite satisfied for this.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Atulya, for that.
So, Mr. Dev, would you like to add on to this?
Yeah. So basically, at Zomato, as you know, it's a growing startup. You get a lot of ownership. Matlab, it's a term which you'll not feel the weight of right now. I mean, even after half or 1 month into the job, I didn't knew its weight. पर you see, I have zero knowledge about software development. Only thing I knew was CP. But एकदम से उसका जो switch होता है, it's pretty different. मतलब software development is about how much your code is readable, how much reliable it is, किसी stress situation में वो किस तरह से perform करता है. और उससे better part ये है कि you have a real impact. मतलब जो whatever code I am writing, India level it is impacting all the drivers. I am in the team which takes care of rider tech. So the code which I write today is impacting the driver, let's say day after tomorrow. I am the one who's testing, I'm the one who's writing the code, then getting all the checks done, and it's on the prod level. So मतलब उसमें stressful भी है, मतलब यदि इस prod पे कुछ फट जाता है तो you are the one who will be pinged, and it's really stressful to get pointed out. For the first time for me it was like 4-5 groups थे, सब पे 100 लोग from VP to bottom most people, सब टैग कर रहे हैं कि भाई प्रॉड पे ये फट गया तेरा कोड लिखा हुआ, तो उस हिसाब से बुरा लगता है, बट यू गेट टू नो कि तुम्हारा कोड एक्चुअल में कोई यूज कर रहा है, सो इट्स अ डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ फीलिंग, एंड दैट टू सो मेनी यूजर्स, मतलब इंडिया लेवल पे बहुत सारे राइडर्स होंगे, लैक्स एंड लैक्स ऑफ राइडर्स, सो यू काइंड ऑफ एंजॉय कि यार जो काम मिल रहा है वो कहीं यूज हो रहा है, और दे ऑल्सो गिव यू अ लॉट ऑफ फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी, मतलब इट्स बीन ओनली 2-3 months. If I say any approach, most of the time any sane senior should not listen to what different thing I have, because I know a lot less. But then also at Zomato, I've seen that people appreciate you talking about things, questioning their approach, and they try to give a good answer, and if somehow your approach is better, they even change what they are doing. So that's something which is quite different. I mean, I'm not internet any other company, so I don't have any place to compare it with, but I generally feel it is not the case with many MNCs. So other than that, I think it's pretty stressful. The least time I've been in office is in 9 hours, and least time I mean, let's say 1 or 2 days in this 3 months, and the most time I've been is like 10 hours, or maybe 9 hours. Oh, sorry, 10 hours or 9.5 hours. And after that we have night deployments, so which is like after coming home at around 7:30. After 10, you generally have deployments, which is like कि तुम्हारा कोड अब जाएगा prod पे, क्योंकि उस समय सबसे यदि कुछ दिक्कत होती है तो there is very less stress on the system. So from 10 to 12, I used to maybe alternate 2-3 times a week. It depends on how much of your code is getting pushed to the prods. Other than that, there might be early morning deployments as well, which starts at 6. So in 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 that sense, I would say there is a lot of stress, but it's kind of a good feeling as well, because they are giving you a lot of ownership of your product. There are 2-3 people who work on a certain microservice, and they generally would want you guys to be owner of a service within 1 year. So it's pretty different. So Zomato basically promotes you pretty soon compared to any other company. They don't have a hard limit on 2 years. I've seen many guys getting promoted to SD2 or SD3s. I've seen a guy who's just 3 years of experience and he's an SD3, and that's really amazing. But you see, the bar is pretty high at Zomato. So a normal guy there would be working, say, 10 to 11 hours, including at a minimum, including both on office, in the office, and at home. So yeah, you get to learn a lot, you get to question a lot, and your impact is towards all of the India. So it's a quite good feeling.
Okay, so Mr. Jyoti, would you like to share something about your work culture?
Yeah, like I think my company is a bit more forgiving, I think, than what these two have mentioned. I think in my case, it is like it's a startup based out of US, so they've recently moved to India. I think in my company, they're still setting it up, so the operations are going forward. So I think the best part that I have is like we have smaller teams. So when there's smaller teams, I think you tend to get more of the work and more ownership of the work. I think that is something that has been great to me. And apart from that, I think our firm is mostly like a B2B firm. So most of the clients are business. I think you get to deal with real business problems, like what problems business are facing. I think you get to work on those type of problems. I think because businesses generally tend to have like some weird like problems that they arise. I think that is like a good thing where you get to know like the problems that they're facing. Apart from that, like going towards the tech stack, I think most of my work is generally in Java and Python. I think I tend to dabble in these two domains particularly. Other than that, like coming towards the working hours, I think mine is like a proper 9 to 5 job. I think generally after post working hours, since currently most of the team is there in US and we are sort of like a new setup. I think when you report to US managers, I think that time it gets a bit hectic. Like you have to attend meetings late night because their clock is like 12 hours at a negative time. So I think that is like one of the drawbacks over here. But apart from that, I think you would tend to complete the work in the office. I think it's pretty standard in most of the SaaS companies.
Okay. So I had another question from all of you. like how your work culture at your respective companies influenced your personal and professional growth. So, Mr. Dev, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, what do you mean by the personal growth? I mean, क्या मतलब मजे मजे की बात कर रहे हो क्या भाई?
I mean, like, no, like, like how much time you get for, like, apart from your profession for yourself.
यार अपार्ट फ्रॉम प्रोफेशन सो आई वुड से वीकडेज में तो जीरो, और वीकेंड्स में यदि कुछ फटा नहीं है तो फिर थोड़ा टाइम मिल जाता है, अदरवाइज काम तो करना पड़ता है। वो दे मेक श्योर कि फ्राइडे को तुम्हारे पास इतना काम हो कि तुम्हारे सैटरडे और संडे जो है वो कम्प्लीटली फ्री ना रहे। बट हाँ, सैटरडे संडे कंपैरेटिवली चिल रहते हैं। बाकी तो ठीक है, मतलब हमारी कंपनी में ऐसा है कि एटलीस्ट इन जोमेटो, तो यदि तुमको लग रहा है कि तुम्हारी हेल्थ थोड़ी डिटोरिएट हो रही है या इफ यू नीड अ ब्रेक, they don't ask you why when you would want to take a leave. It's not any professional way. I mean, there is professional ways in place, but there is also a snack channel जहाँ पे कि तुम बोल सकते हो कि मेरे को आज वर्क फ्रॉम होम करना है, मेरे को आज छुट्टी लेनी है। then they are pretty chill about it. They understand कि प्रेशर बहुत हैवी है, तो in that sense it's like that. और प्रोफेशनली तो आई वुड से कि यार सीखने को बहुत मिलता है। मतलब इन 3 महीनों में मैंने बहुत सारे टेक स्टैक जिनके बारे में मैं पहले नाम भी नहीं सुने होंगे, मैं उनमें अब वर्क कर सकता हूँ, उनको डिबग भी मैं ही करता हूँ, तो आई नो इन्स एंड आउट ऑफ देम। और कोडिंग लैंग्वेजेस भी मतलब 3-4 में काम होता है। पॉइंट इज कि वो तुमको टास्क दे देंगे कि ये फीचर बिल्ड करना है। अब उसको बिल्ड करने के लिए तुम्हें क्या यूज करना है, वो कंपनी में जो ऑलरेडी यूज हो रहा है वो यूज करके करना है, कुछ डिफरेंट यूज करके करना है। मोस्टली तो कंपनी सब कुछ ऑलरेडी यूज कर ही रही होती है, तो तुम्हें खुद ही सीखना है, वो टास्क कंप्लीट करना है। व्हाट मैटर्स इज कि तुम्हारा आउटपुट आना चाहिए। तो ग्रोथ में तो आई वुड से हाँ, ग्रो सीखने को बहुत मिलता है। मतलब जब तुम इतनी देर काम करोगे तो कुछ तो सीखोगे ही भाई, सीखने की ग्रोथ बहुत अच्छी होगी। बस मजे करने के लिए टाइम कम मिलता है, वो तो है।
Mr. Atulya?
या सो मतलब देख लो, वीकडेज पे तो मेरा भी सेम ही है। मतलब 10-11 घंटा मैं ऑफिस पे रहता हूँ। द गुड थिंग इज कि घर मतलब अपार्टमेंट 10 ही मिनट दूर है, तो वो सही चीज़ है। चल चल के आ जाता हूँ, तो दैट सेव्स अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम। वीकडेज पे मोस्टली ऑफिस जाता हूँ, फिर आके सो ही जाता हूँ, थक जाता हूँ मोस्टली। वीकेंड्स पे लाइक सिंस इट्स लाइक यूरोप में ऐसा नहीं चलता है कि मतलब उस केस में मैं थोड़ा बच गया, नहीं तो मेरे को भी काम मिल जाता। लेकिन हाँ, मतलब यूरोप में देयर लाइक काइंड ऑफ स्ट्रिक्ट अबाउट कि मतलब बाउंड्रीज, लाइक यू आर नॉट सपोज टू वर्क ऑन वीकेंड्स एंड सो ऑन। एंड इवन योर बॉस एंड लीड टीम लीड्स दे रिस्पेक्ट दैट फैक्ट, एंड नो वन विल बी वर्किंग ऑन वीकेंड्स, दैट्स द बेस्ट थिंग। बट या मैं कुछ वैसे भी नहीं कर रहा हूँ, इससे पहले मैं वीडियो गेम्स खेल रहा था, तो क्या ठीक है।
Mr. Jyoti, would you like to add something?
हाँ, तो आई थिंक मेरा भी सेम है मोस्टली। आई थिंक वीकडेज में तो आई थिंक मोस्टली टाइम मिलता नहीं है। आई थिंक तुम एक बार ऑफिस आ जाते हो, फिर ऑफिस का थोड़ा सा पेंडिंग काम भी रह जाता है, आई थिंक वो करने में निकल जाता है। या फिर मोस्टली मेरा तो आई थिंक यूएस शिफ्ट के साथ वो होता है, तो आई थिंक मोस्टली मेरी मीटिंग्स लेट नाइट को होता है। आई थिंक जनरली मीटिंग्स आके अटेंड करते हैं। आई थिंक वीकडेज में तो आई थिंक मोस्टली कुछ ऐसा पर्टिकुलर सेल्फ टाइम तो नहीं मिलता है। बट आई थिंक वीकेंड्स तो कम्प्लीटली फ्री रहता है। आई थिंक एज अतुल्य मेंशन, आई थिंक यूरोप और यूएस में थोड़ा सा वो कल्चर है कि भाई वीकेंड्स को कोई डिस्टर्ब नहीं करेगा। तो वीकेंड्स तो लाइक प्रॉपर्ली फ्री रहता है। आई थिंक कोई ज्यादा पिंग्स आती नहीं है अनटिल अनलेस तो मॉर्निंग कॉल में हो किसी डिपार्टमेंट में। आई थिंक वीकेंड्स आर कम्प्लीटली फ्री, बट वीकडेज में तो मतलब काम रहता है। आई थिंक ऐसा कोई पर्टिकुलरली तुम मी टाइम तो नहीं कर सकते। आई थिंक जो काम है वो कंप्लीट करते करते निकल जाता
Like it seems like there's a perfect balance between work and having fun.
मतलब
है। हाँ,
अभी तो
यस आई
नहीं कह
थिंक।
सकता मैं।
मतलब मैं ये कहना चाहूंगा कि जोमेटो में भी तुम वीकेंड्स पे चिल थोड़ा मार सकते हो, बट इट इज जस्ट कि तुम्हारे पास में स्किल होनी चाहिए। फॉर मी आई नो मेरे पास में नहीं है वो स्किल, क्योंकि नहीं आता भाई, मैं सीख रहा हूँ कंप्लीट सॉफ्टवेयर, तो मेरे को लग जाता है भाई। बट कोई और जो जिसने मे बी इंटर्नशिप्स कर रखी हो या उसको थोड़ा आइडिया हो, आई थिंक उनके लिए चिल होना चाहिए। तो वो
हाँ,
वाला
दिस
सीन है।
दिस फैक्ट, मतलब यहाँ पे भी ऐसा है कि लाइक इफ यू आर स्किल्ड इनफ, तो मतलब मैं जैसे मेरे को थोड़ा टाइम लगता है डीबग वगैरह करने में। मैं उसलिए ऐसा आता है कि ठीक है, 1 घंटे में कोड लिख दिया, बाकी का 8 घंटा मैं लॉग्स पढ़ रहा हूँ और डीबग मार रहा हूँ क्या गड़बड़ हुआ है। तो मोस्टली ये हो जाता है। बट लाइक इफ देयर आर लाइक सीनियर मेंबर्स, तो उनको लाइक हार्डली 10-15 मिनट लगते हैं समझने में कि हाँ क्या गड़बड़ हुई है। तो ये स्किल इज ऑलवेज वन थिंग। और एज यू नो कि ओए वगैरह में तो भाई कुछ भी पूछते हैं जो रिलेवेंट है भी नहीं जॉब से। तो yeah, there's always a gap between that. तो डीएसए वीएसए कभी यूज नहीं होने वाला, मतलब मोस्टली 99% नहीं होने वाला यूज. मोस्टली क्या यूज होने वाला है तुम्हारा एक्चुअल यूज सिर्फ ऊप्स का लगा मेरे को, ऊप्स और सिस्टम डिजाइन का थोड़ा बहुत जो एक्चुअली वर्क में काम आता है, नहीं तो बाकी सब इट्स यूजली यूजलेस. So there's always a gap in between OS and stuff. Yeah, just get good. वही है. Get good and you will have more time. That's it. So thoda time, if you, just a suggestion, if you like go to internships and so on, please give a lot of time. मतलब वहां पे भी तुम chill मार सकते हो, लेकिन बेहतर ये होगा कि तुम पूरा time use करो and get to the business side of things as well, apart from the tech side. So you are supposed to like make full use of whatever internship you have. Or like constantly upskill yourself. DSA वगैरह is important for you to get jobs, but yeah, if you do not do any projects and so on, तो दिक्कत होगी बाद में. Then you will have like more load on yourself. इसलिए बेहतर होता है कि have a balance for everything. Like मजे भी करो, CP वगैरह भी कर लो और थोड़ा बहुत ऐसे projects वगैरह explore करो. That is always good. Keeps you fresh.
Thank you all. That provides a lot of understanding. So, continuing with this discussion about the companies, I would request all the panelists to give advice for the audience who are targeting to join your respective companies. I would like Mr. Jyoti to go ahead with his experience at Databricks.
Yeah, sure. So I think I'd share my experience for both. I think for my internship at DShaw and I think Databricks. So what I would say is like CP is the like prime most important thing. Like I think if you're targeting for SD in general, I think competitive programming is the most important thing. I think if you are coming towards like DShaw or the Databricks, I think both of their OA will be at like a good level. I think Databricks was easier doing placements this time, but I think because that was like the first time they came. But from now on, I think there will be at par with other companies. I think there will be three questions as expected. The first one will be like a CF 1400, 1300. The second one will again be somewhat like a CF 1600 rated. And third problem generally tend to be towards DP and graphs. So I think they somehow sometimes reach towards the 1700 or 1800 mark. I think this is like the general difficulty level that you will be targeting if your aim is to get into DShaw or Databricks. Secondly, I think Databricks focuses a lot on system design. I think you will have a round on system design at Databricks, which will be the round three. There are three rounds. And even for DShaw, it is the same. I think DShaw gives more importance to what say OS and OOPS, but the general trend is like DShaw will have a round on OS and OOPS where they'll like properly grill you on processes and how different things happen. And for Databricks, there'll be a importance on system design. Like Databricks, they won't focus much on OS, but they'll have a round for system design. Apart from this, I think, like as I mentioned, OS like understood by default that you have to do coding. There's no alternate to that. And thirdly, projects. I would say, like DShaw does not focus on projects. I think they least care about your projects. Like even if you don't have any good projects, they won't care. But Databricks, on the other hand, I think they will focus on your projects. Like like there'll be a third round, which will be like a proper discussion on the projects round, like where they will ask you what projects you have done, why does your interest lie in this particular field, and they will expect it to be a good quality projects. And but these are like projects don't matter. They like even a basic project will do over there. And then apart from that, like general tips, I would say, like try to keep your CG high. I think that matters. I think obviously department is not under your control unless until you're in first year. But apart from that, I would say like you try to keep your CG high. If someone says CG does not matter, I think it will be a lie. Because many of the companies sometimes they dare give you a CG shortlist or you won't receive the OA link unless until your CG is above a certain level. So I'd say that try to keep your CG high. And other than that, I think the general order is always like this. Like CP is the most important thing. Like there's nothing that comes close to it. Second will be obviously like OOPS and system design. Both are like equal weightage and try to do those things. And third, I think you can do OS. And then further down the line, I think depending upon if you're targeting like HFTs, you can go towards like computer networks and DBMS and all those different stuff. But for the majority of the people, I would say the top three are the most important things. And obviously, then the general tips are always there, like stay calm, like give proper, how you're able to communicate to the interviewer. I think those things matter. I think the general HR tips are always there.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Jyoti.
So they would you like to go ahead with it? Like tell me about Zomato in a bit short way about how it interviews and what should
Yeah,
personal advice for it.
yep. So basically, see, मेरा interview experience could be little different from others. Primarily because मेरा Zomato SDA में shortlist नहीं था. तो बट आई फील कि मेरा सबसे हार्डेस्ट ही हुआ होगा मतलब बट हाउ इट वेंट वाज कि मेरा सबसे पहले जोमेटो एनालिस्ट रोल में शॉर्टलिस्ट था और वहाँ पे दे आस्क्ड मी अबाउट एसक्यूएल एंड ऑल and then they made me code SQL and I did code in that. After that, they were asking me product questions और मुझसे नहीं बने. So that's when they saw my CV and that's where some of the spikes which were present in my CV helped me. And he told कि तुम software में try क्यों नहीं करते हो. So and that's when after the Zomato was completed, I remember in afternoon maybe 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, Zomato finished their all the interview process and that's when he told me कि तुम अपनी CV एक बार किसी को दिखा दो. So that's how my Zomato software started. So they grilled me a lot. They need to be sure कि अब इसको इतनी late ले रहे हैं तो he needs to be good. So they asked me two questions, coding questions, and they told me to write it with all the syntaxes on paper, and they focused on optimizing on memory, optimizing on time complexity, optimizing on execution time. मतलब वो क्वेश्चन को tweak कर करके they would want कि तुम 2 बार for loop भी ना चलाओ. So it was something like that. फिर उसके बाद में they asked me about OS. They asked me about oops OS में भी they asked about some system calls. मतलब I think basic ही है वो. थोड़े बहुत सिस्टम कॉल्स थ्रेडिंग वगैरह कैसे तुम थोड़े बहुत थ्रेड्स को डिफरेंशिएट करते हो वो सब. फिर देयर वर एवरीथिंग इन माय सीवी वाज मोस्टली एमएल. तो उन्होंने एमएल पे थोड़ा बहुत पूछा विच फॉर मी वाज प्रीटी इजी क्योंकि ही वाज फ्रॉम एसडी तो मतलब उतने डीप क्वेश्चन उन्होंने पूछे नहीं. उसके अलावा ही आस्क्ड टू डिजाइन he he asked me some system design problem and then some SQL again. फिर he was going to ask me about computer networks. At that point मैंने कहा कि नहीं computer networks मैंने बिल्कुल नहीं पढ़ा है. So it took me around 2 hours of this interview if I'm not wrong. But इसके बाद में there was only HR round. So there were 2 HR rounds for me. One where 3 senior guys were there and for 30 odd minutes they were just telling me why I want to join Zomato, the expected questions which I mostly knew, why from economics, why from ML, why only Zomato, why not research, so on and so forth. So that was the gist. Other than that, after that HR round, they again had one small 15 minutes of HR round where only just one guy came in, and he was like trying to gauge if I really wanna join for the company. It was pretty easy, and after that, they were done with it. So I feel if you guys particularly would want to target Zomato, you can ask or reach out to some other guys as well for Zomato specific things. But I feel knowing more never hurts, and that was where it helped me. So that's the thing. Yeah. And also one more thing, luck has its role. So the worst OA which I was telling you was for Zomato SD only. I really did only one question and 1.5 questions, even after knowing what the questions are. And still, luck has had its own way. I did whatever I could do best, and yeah, you see.
Yeah. So, Mr. Atulya, would you like to tell us about Da Vinci?
Yeah, I could start with Salesforce as well. But the problem with DaVinci is they kind of change their test patterns every year. So should I go ahead with that?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
it's not gonna help anyone, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, mentioning it wouldn't be, it would just add to the knowledge. Yes.
Yeah. So this year they had like a subjective kind